And say, what is this? And I'd start talking to them about low glycemic index carbohydrates and glycemic load and avoiding hyperinsulinemia, and they'd get a little glassy-eyed and say, okay, have a good day. Finally, one day I said, this will help you lose weight and you'll never be hungry. They said, oh my God, what aisle is it in? So it's in aisle 7, right? Don't you want to know how it works? No. I don't. I won't understand anyway. I'm just going to go try it. What's it cost? It costs $30 for 6. All right, I'm there. Right? So if they want the benefits, sometimes you don't even need the reason to believe. Okay, one more example. This one's a little more crude. I think it's funny. Some years ago, I was raising money for, I think, my second business. It was a long time ago, and people would actually write business plans and submit a 25 or 30-page document to the venture capitalists. And I had a lonely office in an office building in always lovely Lowell, Massachusetts, and I would sit in this cell and work and talk about all the things that you'd talk about. And after a few days of this, I realized I'm frizzing out. I can't do this all day long. I got to do something that's wildly different the latter part of the day just to recharge my batteries. So I started working part-time selling motorcycles at a dealership on Mass Ave in Arlington, Greater Boston Motorsports, if any of you know the place, right? So I was at GBM. I'd show up at 4 o'clock, stay till 7, maybe work a Saturday. And many of my colleagues were convicted felons. True. And I like motorcycles. I'm on my 12th. I know a little bit about the technology. People would wander in and say, tell me about this bike. And I'd go off on steel braided brake lines. And one day there was a guy standing there looking at me. And I looked at him and I thought, this fellow's a little rough around the edges. I'm not sure he's going to be interested in what kind of calipers are on the disc brakes. I said, dude, this thing's a chick magnet. If you buy this thing, you're going to have a taser in your pocket to keep the women off the back of your bike. Sold the motorcycle. Because I looked at him and I thought, well, there's a lesson here, right? Figure out what the guy cares about, and if I can deliver that to him, well, I've got a sale. So if they don't want the benefits, stop right there. If you can nail the benefit, a lot of times they don't need a reason to believe. But if you give them the reason to believe without figuring out whether or not they want the benefit, you're wasting your time and theirs. Okay, asking for the order. People rarely step forward and say, oh my God, can I please give you my money? You often have to ask. And a classic sequence for this is, well, how do you feel about what I've told you so far? Who can tell me what kind of question that is? Thank you, open-ended. Somebody was listening last week. All right, so in sales parlance, this is called probe for objections. And then affirm. That makes sense. Implicitly, I hear you. You raise some concerns. You're not sure I could execute this. You're not sure I can address these questions within a reasonable time frame. So if I can address those concerns within the 10 days that you asked, how would you feel about it then? Another open-ended question. Well, I would probably take you more seriously. Okay. In sales parlance, that's a trial close. Yes, I had to learn all of this after I graduated. Okay? So I go off and I do what I said I would do for 10 days, and I come back. And I say, I did what you asked me to do. Here are the answers. When can we start? Ask for the order. Now again, in the course, because this is essentially a talk, obviously this is a touch oversimplified, but that's a classic sequence. Follow-up is probably 80% of selling, because if she gives me a couple of concrete objections and I say, great, I'm going to handle them, and I don't, or I don't call her back, or I call her back 2 weeks later than I said I would, et cetera, et cetera. The trust has evaporated. She's not interested. You want to build your credibility, show your interest. And if somewhere in the course of the 10 days I happen to run across an article in Technology Review that's relevant to her concern, and send it to her and say, I've been thinking about our conversation. Here's some information from a credible source that you might find valuable. Top of mind, okay? It's not manipulative. It is, in fact, showing your prospect that you are engaged and that you care. Okay, that was like 10 minutes of something that you could easily spend a month on. Fast and furious, welcome to MIT. Let's talk about presenting. And again, just a few basics. On the website for Nuts and Bolts, over on the left-hand side is something called resources. Some of them are articles. This is one of the resources. This guy does a better job in 7 minutes than I can do in an hour. Watch his video. Just a recommendation. V equals W over H stands for you get more value if you tell them why than if you spend a lot of time telling them how. That's kind of a different way of saying what I was saying. Benefits first. Tell them why they want it rather than how you're going to do it. Okay, 2 requirements for a successful presentation is they have to care. So my idea of a lawnmower for her didn't work. She didn't care. So you want a good fit. And the second is that they believe you. Because remember that first image I popped up of the guy that embodied sleaze with ease? Right? They got to believe you. So they have to believe that your description is true. And to your point, you can execute. You can do what you say you can do. And understanding your audience is a prerequisite. You were talking about this when you were talking about what happens when the guy comes in at 7 o'clock in the morning and gets to work on getting the company going. So understanding your audience, you should ask yourself a basic question. By the way, if you get this wrong, you're hopeless. So which do they care more about, you or themselves? Right? You need therapy if you don't get this one right. So should your goal be to persuade them that you're really smart, or that your technology is really awesome, or that your vision is really compelling? And the answer is maybe, but only if it supports your value proposition. Benefits first, then reason to believe. By the way, I got this because I once had a venture where one of my investors was Procter & Gamble. This was quite comical because you could get my company in my car at the time, and P&G is about 80 billion in annual sales. But I spent a fair amount of time working with them in their Miami Valley labs outside of Cincinnati, and they practically got a tattoo gun out, wrote that across my forehead. Benefits first. And remember that the people you're presenting to have as their first priority the question, how's this going to help me? So a few guidelines. Invest the time to understand what they want. Listen carefully. An underrated skill, listening. I know it's corny, but it helps if you actually care about what they need. A sequence that's often effective is an introduction. Ask them what they're looking for. I wrote Nordstrom up there to remind me to tell you a story about this. I had just finished running a small, feisty, and not very successful company in Chicago, and I just broke down and took a job and moved to Southern California. I was living in Orange County, just south of Los Angeles. And I needed some clothes because I'd been looking sort of scruffy. And there was this new store opened in the South Shore Mall called Nordstrom. Somebody said, go in there. So I went in there, and I had a budget in mind of what I thought I would spend. And I'm looking over at some stuff, and the sales guy comes over and says, "You're looking for suits?" I said, "Yeah, thinking about it." He said, "What kind of work do you do?" I said, "Well, I took a job with this healthcare company that's over on such and such a boulevard." He said, "Are you in finance? Are you in accounting? Are you in manufacturing?" I said, "No, I'm in marketing." He said, "You have a lot of customer contact?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You're not required to sit at your desk all day long wearing dark suits?" I said, "No." He said, "So you could probably be a little more fashion forward than some of that stuff over there." I thought, well, nobody ever accused me of being fashion forward, but I suppose, yeah, maybe I could. And he says, "You're 40 regular." You know what I had for breakfast this morning? Anyway, so he brought me over and he pulled out a suit. And he said, "How do you feel about this?" I said, "Well, it's pretty good looking." He said, "Well, go try it on." So I did, and I came back out, and I'm looking at the mirrors that are up there and thinking, "Geez, I look pretty good." Well, he said, "I've got another one. You might consider this one, try this one." So I went in and tried on the second one. While I did, he put the first one out on a table and lined up 3 shirts and ties. Realize this is a vestige of your past, right? All lined up. So I came out wearing the second suit, and he says, "Well, how do you feel about these ensembles?" Anyway, I quadrupled what I expected to spend. Big hit to the credit card. And I was delighted. And about 2 days later, I thought, how'd he do that? Right? So, well, the answer was that he really confirmed that he knew what I was looking for. And then he went on, of course, to tell me how stylish I looked, and there was a bit of that stuff going on, but it worked. And then, of course, he also spent a little time saying, "Look, see the stitching in here? The suit's going to last a long time." And I didn't care. I totally didn't care. What I thought about was, damn, I've gone from looking like a scruffy blues guitarist to looking like somebody who deserves an office job. So, a couple more guidelines. What helps you to be believable? Well, you need to have conviction, some enthusiasm, some passion. But if you start frothing at the mouth or fall on the ground and start speaking in tongues, you probably lose some credibility. Some supporting evidence, reasons to believe. And then brevity, because everybody you're talking to is busy. So 3 tips for brevity. Be clear, be brief, shut up. Sit down. Stop talking. Right? Be respectful. Because if the words are coming out of your mouth, you're probably lying. If the words come out of your prospect's mouth, it's the God's honest truth. So state your case and let them talk. Okay? How much information is right? This is a particularly pernicious problem with technically inclined graduates of technical institutions, because they want to do a data dump, right? Just a full core dump of everything that's in there. Well, if you're pulling together a presentation, this is a radical thought. I don't want you guys to start, having anxiety attacks, but turn your computer off and ask yourself, when you get done with your talk and you leave the room and they leave the room and somebody walks in and says, "How was this talk?" What 3 things do you want them to say about your talk? Because 3 points is about all most people can retain. The suits look good, the shirts look good, the ties look good. I'm out of here, right? So be ruthless in your editing. Right? You just don't have the time, and in fact, it's counterproductive to yammer on endlessly about this. All right, you used a phrase a couple of minutes ago, which is what made me accuse you of hacking into my computer, which was customer intimacy. It is a bit of a term of art, but it's applicable. So if you're pulling together a presentation, it really helps if you know who you're talking to. What do they want to know? What do they care about? What do they worry about? If I look at you guys tonight and think, well, what do you worry about? Some of you might worry that you're going to be embarrassed if you stand up here in a few minutes with the microphone. So I'm here to help you with that. So there's some basic questions. What's broke that you fix? What's the unmet need? What are the consequences of that need being unmet? Who's likely to suffer? Is there somebody out there that's too big, somebody that's too small? Here's an example. I worked a little bit, actually Joe and I both worked a little bit with a fellow who was in the data security business, because people's computers get hacked, spoils their whole day. And we started working with him a little bit, and we said, who are you calling on? And the answer basically was everybody. And we figured out if the company had less than 1,000 employees, they couldn't afford him. They were too small. If the company had more than 10,000 employees, they didn't want him because they had an in-house IT department, and they didn't want him coming in making them look bad. So they were too big. The sweet spot, the proverbial Goldilocks zone, was between 1,000 and 10,000. And he slapped his forehead and sent a note 3 months later saying, guys, thanks to you and that focus, my sales in the past quarter were larger than they were all of last year. So we just used his time better. So who's too big, who's too small? Why will they think your solution is better? And then while you're pulling your presentation together, again, be ruthless, organize it tightly, and excluding some of the things you might be tempted to talk about will make your talk better. A few words about style. Most of us who do a lot of presentation have learned that we should slow down. Partly because of room acoustics, partly because we want you to have time to process these precious words of wisdom. So slow down. Speak more slowly, enunciate clearly. If they say you have 4 minutes to give a talk, and you're looking at your content and you think, I've got 6 minutes of content. I'm just going to talk really fast. I'm going to get every bit of this out on the screen because every single word of what I'm about to say is going to be really effective. After 3 or 4 minutes, your audience is going to say, oh my God, get this guy out of here. Don't do it. Do a better job of the editing. Passion should be deployed wisely. And tell a story. Tell a story. People relate to anecdotes. If I simply told you, know your customer and you'll sell more, it would have less impact than if I told you the Nordstrom story, which was true, right? So tell a story. Okay, enough of that. Just had to have a little fun, Joe. Sorry, hope you'll forgive me. Yeah, well, if Joe and I had shown up here in our white dinner jackets, you'd have said, dude, you clearly don't understand your audience, right? So, using a microphone. Kyle, I'm going to shut this thing I'm using now off for demonstration purposes for a minute or two. Check. Oop. I was just saying, maybe you should check. Thank you. Okay. We need to talk about these things. Some microphones are what's called omnidirectional, meaning they pick up sound from all around. And they're used in things like this. The presenters are different heights, different distances, etc. Most of these mics were not developed for that purpose. They are unidirectional. They amplify what you point at them and they exclude the other sounds because they're useful for people like this, right? You don't want the drum kit, the flash pots, all those extraneous noises coming in. So, speak down the barrel of the mic, not over the top. Down the barrel of the mic. Optimal distance, 2 to 4 inches. It will make a huge difference in your comprehensibility. And again, speak more slowly than you usually would. Now, I have spent umpty-nine hours in meetings where the presenter is standing there. And what could be worse than that is if they like to gesture. So they say, well, as you can, and as you can hear, you've seen it, right? If you like to gesture, God bless you. Hold the mic in the other hand. And then we can say, we hope that you, and especially you, will stick and stay and don't go away because we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. The mic stays put. You can gesture all you want, okay? These fundamentals are going to become important to you in a few minutes when I invite you down front and you get excited about your talk and you start talking like this. Of effectiveness. So that's a couple minutes of something that I hope will stand you in good stead. I can pretty well guarantee it's not included in your coursework. Kyle, can you switch my lavalier mic back on, please? Thank you, I think. All right, so there's an 8-letter word which every musician I know absolutely hates. Why does it pertain to you? Well, you're going to find it, you often have to work very hard to make it look easy. Poor Joe has watched me give variations of these talks for at least a decade, and he knows perfectly well that there's not a single one that I have not revised from one year to the next, and not a single one that I didn't practice in advance. I'm just not one of those people for whom it is natural to make it look easy. I got to work pretty hard to make it look easy. It will stand you in good stead. So you're retraining yourself. You're used to sitting in a classroom, maybe. You're probably not so used to getting out there and presenting. So how do you practice? Give your talk to an empty room. Go in and find a classroom. When I got really neurotic about this, at one point I grabbed a bunch of magazine covers and put faces in the chairs. Literally. I'm kind of sick, but I walked around and thought, Kim Kardashian, oh my God. Use a timer. Your phone's got one. If it's a 4-minute talk, shut it off at 4 minutes and ask yourself if you've covered what you want to cover. And if you're really brave, record yourself. Most of us find this to be terrifying because most of us hate our voices. We think, oh my God, I can't believe how dorky I sound. Well, you've been sounding that way since the day you were born, so get over it. And then see the first bullet on the page. Okay? Moving right along, let's raise some venture capital. Just a few words. It's not for the faint of heart. Be careful what you ask for. And abandon hope, all you who enter here. So just a quick word or two. What's it take to see a venture capitalist? Well, You could make a cold call, but they get 200 of those a week. It's probably going into the trash can. You could think, well, I know somebody who's a friend of the venture capitalist. So you ask him or her, and they say, is this a good fit? Because they only do tech and you're in healthcare. So if the answer is no, well, that one goes in the trash can too. And then they ask the next question, which is, are you going to make me look bad? They won't ever tell you this. And if the answer is, yeah, well, that introduction didn't happen either. If you make it through those filters, you get the introduction. You get about 2 of those a week. Your odds are much better. Cold reality. So what do investors care about? Do they care about your technology? Maybe. Your academic credentials? Maybe. Getting back more than they put in? Ooh, we're getting warm. Right? So what's the unmet need? Who's got it? Why will they think your solution is better? What could go wrong? Some of the questions they'll have, of course, will be, what kind of capital are you looking for? How much? How far will it take you? How long before you've built a good business? And then, of course, what's in it for me? There's lots more. This is a fast and furious for you. And some of these questions are straight out of the talk we had last week. A few words about pitch decks. There's a few words. Short, clear, accessible, maybe intriguing. Many entrepreneurs overload their decks. They're too long, they're too technical, there's too much jargon. And the best decks describe the problem and the opportunity in a slide or two. Focus on the unmet need. Show proof that you can meet it. One of your resources on the website is this slide deck, which shows you about 24 very successful pitch decks. And what did they do right? So I'll show you a template, but don't stop with me. Have a look at this. And speaking of templates, something you could consider. Start with an anecdote of somebody who's got a problem and the consequence of the problem. Then say, we've identified customers like the subject of our anecdote who will happily pay to solve that problem. Those people think our solution is better. Talk a little bit about the stage of the business. We have a prototype, we have some early revenue, we're still exploring wherever it is you are. We're raising capital for this reason. Can I answer any questions? I suppose I could knock off a quick example of this. Would that be helpful? All right, give me a second. Mrs. Johnson has a 7-year-old daughter named Jessica. Jessica was recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which means that they had to teach little Jessica to stick a needle in her finger several times a day and bleed on a strip to identify where her blood glucose levels were. And they particularly have a concern that they won't get the insulin and the food regimen correct at night, and that Jessica will go from being asleep to being in a coma. And in fact, that happened once last year. And they had to have the EMTs come to the house and revive their daughter. It made a lasting impression. These days they have an EpiPen. They can probably do it themselves, but the impact was significant. I'm working with a group of doctors at Harvard Medical School. We've developed a solution that Mrs. Johnson and the remainder of her family, the rest of her family, thinks is considerably better than what's out there. And we have a rough prototype. We've got some samples of these bars that are wrapped in Mylar, and they, are not oxygen impermeable, so they won't last long and not suitable for retail. And we've got some draft packaging that's wrapped around a piece of balsa wood. So we can tell you that when we go to the market, it's going to taste like this and it's going to look like this. And we know how to reach thousands of people like Mrs. Johnson through the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation, through the American Association of Diabetes Educators as well. So we need your capital to build out the team, turn the prototype product into a retail product, but honestly at this point it's a marketing play. The science is good, the market is validated, and we're ready to go. Can I answer any questions for you? That wasn't bad, actually. Right? But I kind of followed this template. And I told you about Mrs. Johnson and Jessica, so I personalized it. I didn't throw up a zillion statistics about how many people in the country have diabetes, and the global opportunity is untold billions and all that stuff. The first time that I went out to raise money for that business and was successful, I didn't know it, but the fellow I was talking to at the time had his sister die from precisely the condition that we were there to alleviate. So I told the story, instant resonance, and it wasn't a lot of money. It was $250,000, but it took no time, right? Tell the story. Okay. So with apologies to Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga, time for some stars to be born. Here's what we want. Like a couple of you guys, we'll take turns. Volunteer to come down front. We'll hand you a microphone. Take a couple minutes and tell us about your business. Tell us about your opportunity. You can follow the template that was up there or make up your own. As the audience, we do not owe the presenter love, but we owe the presenter respect. So if at the end of the presentation you didn't have the slightest idea what they were talking about, they got so enamored of their own elegance and they didn't tell you who the customer is, how they're going to make money, and that stuff. It's okay to say that. You can be diplomatic, but you can say, you just didn't cover it. Right? So, respectful feedback. Think about how you might apply the feedback you just gave and just heard to your own situation. And this is kind of a risk-free environment here. Because if you've got an idea today, you might have another idea next week, right? You're just tossing stuff out right now. Think of it as a practice session in a closed-door room. All right? So, who's brave? Sorry, Joe? Who's the audience they're addressing? Oh, let's say that we are a mixture, thank you for asking, a mixture of angel investors, venture capitalists, and maybe even one or two private equity types. So we are people who have capital, and we are looking for places to invest it. And we know, of course, that all of you are geniuses and lovable, kind to animals, all of that stuff. We're trying to figure out, do you understand your business, and is there an opportunity here? Fair enough? Okay, so Kyle, I've got mic 5 here, if that's okay. Nobody has it together. I have never given a talk that I didn't revise. So yes, a welcoming hand, please. Well, it'll probably help if I turn it on. Okay, it says 7:05. About 7:08, I'm going to come over here and say.
All right. Hi, my name is Sabrine. Am I doing the microphone right? Okay.
Sounds good to me. Does it sound good to you guys?
Great. So I am coming off of medical leave because though I'm a physician myself, I found myself having increasing difficulty breathing, I was even passing out. And though I've actually had surgeries in the past, turns out I was having a progression of disease and ended up actually needing 6 blood transfusions and a major surgery. And I'm a Harvard-trained medical doctor. So it turns out that what I was dealing with, which caused me to go on medical leave, disrupt my studies, affected my relationships, affects at least 10 million women in the United States between ages 30 and 50. It affects us, it affects our employers, It affects our insurance companies with a lot of unintended preventable cost. So what I'm proposing is a health navigation model that helps women assess what's going on with them, get information faster, get to the right doctor faster, and potentially prevent a surgery, because actually 1 in 3 women in the United States ends up with a hysterectomy that she could actually not amputate her organ. So this service will work better than the current status. I'm a former health insurance executive, I'm a physician, and I'm a woman, and from those perspectives, I've reached out to my network, to women. I've interviewed over 60 women, to health insurance executives, and there's an alignment of interest here. So what I need at this point from you, in terms of your investment, is to further validate this market, to take the MVP that we have currently and to add some parsimony into it, to narrow it down, and then to start to do some marketing to take this forward.
Good. Stay put. Thank you. Well, your comments, your thoughts?
You can
Come on, guys. You weren't all asleep. Tell her what you thought. Over here. Go ahead, sir. Okay. Great presentation skills. Did she paint a gripping picture of the problem? Yeah, I thought so. Did she tell you how she's going to make money? Ooh. Oops. Oops. All right. But she said a couple of magic words. She's interviewed over 60 people in her network. I got to tell you, a lot of technically oriented founders cannot spell the word customer, never do that. So if she were to do it again, not tonight, sadly, what would be the one thing that she should build in if she just could change one thing? What would it be? Well, let's broaden it a little bit. How about follow the money? Just follow the money. I've identified these people. In the course of interviewing these 60 people, I asked them if there were a service available that would help you avoid all of this, would you expect to pay for it? And all of them said yes. And so here's how we would put that together. We'd have these people, we'd subcontract it, we'd get reimbursed. I don't know, you'd have to fill in the blanks. And you don't even have to put all that into your brief presentation. You can just say, we have figured out a route to generate revenue out of this, and I'll be happy to address that if you are interested.
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, all right. And then Joe's got something to say as well.
Okay, so.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so
okay.
I think the thing is that I wanted to validate that women would use it, but I actually want insurance to pay for it, so I have another level of questioning to go through.
It's okay to build that into your presentation.
Got it.
My primary customer ultimately will be the women who have this need, but the money is going to come from the insurance companies, as is so often the case in healthcare. And I have another layer of market research yet ahead of me. Part of how I will use the seed capital that I'm raising is to do that research. That's okay. They'll say, well, we applaud you for having the recognition that this is a customer complex, not just a customer. So I'll take your mic. Let's give her a hand. Nice job. Okay, that was a tough act to follow. You willing? Come on down. I'm going to throw a challenge out to those of you in the room who have a Y chromosome. If we only have women presenting this evening, I will talk about you. You're on. And you've got until 7:13 on the clock up there. Okay?
My friend Andrew is a Babson candidate. He is currently working on a blockchain idea. He has been looking for like-minded people with whom he can brainstorm his idea and also get some help on prototyping. He has been searching for people at Babson, but unfortunately, he did not find any. So he attended the cross-university mixer, which happened at Harvard. That's where he finally found one tech person who he can collaborate with for his idea. Universities today are offering a lot of entrepreneurship resources. One thing which is lacking is the help in finding tech talent. We are here with BITS Startups. BITS Startups helps US student entrepreneurs find tech talent from global talent pool, including top premier tech institutions from India. The way we make money is that we approach the entrepreneurship centers at universities and make them sign up on the platform, which gives free access to the students from that university. Currently, we are prototyping. We have so far 54 users on our platform. And what we are seeking today is people who are interested in finding tech talent, who are willing to participate in our beta testing. Thank you very much.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's provide some feedback for our presenter. Go ahead, sir. Don't get too comfortable. You're going to have to give the mic back.
That's true. So you said you go to the student resources centers and you make them sign up for the service. But the question I have is, why would they do that? What are you offering to the student resource center to make them work with you?
So for many entrepreneurship centers, they are judged based on like how many startups come out of the center. And when it comes to tier 2 universities, like lot of them do not, like they provide entrepreneurship resources, but they are not, like for example at Babson. Babson has great entrepreneurial
Let me stop
ecosystem.
you because we don't really have time for a comprehensive answer, but what comes out of this is what's in it for me, right? This is a two-sided business model, right? You have the industry will pay you, and presumably the students will pay you in some fashion. One of the potential tech entrepreneurs says, what's in it for me? So another question or another bit of feedback for our presenter. Uh-oh.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry, we've got a dead microphone here.
He mentioned that it's always good to start the presentation with your name. I missed mentioning my name. My name is Prajakta Jagtap.
Yeah, it does help to introduce yourself so they know whose name to put on the check. All right, you have one. All right, one last question. Go ahead. Let me stop you for a second. Since this is going out via Zoom, it might be nice to capture. So, Kyle, this is number 8.
Yeah, it was on. You turned it off.
Oh, I turned it off. You know, I hate it when I do that. There you go. Thank you.
So I think you can use your tone a little bit more intentionally to deliver certain data or facts or story even. And the second thing is stylistically, I kind of saw you waving your hand when you were holding the microphone, so just be more aware of that as well.
Thank you.
God, I love it when people listen. Thank you. That was great. All right, how about a nice round of applause?
Thank you.
And by the way, good luck with your venture. Thank you. We've got time. Joe, when should we stop? 7:25? All right. Then, gentlemen, stand by. Come on.
Hi, my name is Owen Coulter. How many of you know what Facebook is? Raise your hand. What if I told you we have the next Facebook? In fact, we're actually going to be bigger than the next Facebook. And let me tell you why. I noticed that with Facebook and many other social media platforms, they're focused on connecting people with people they already know. Facebook's motto is connect with friends, but I want to connect people with strangers. That's why with Friend Finder, it's a new app where you basically like make a profile, say your interest, and it's kind of like a dating app but for friends. But there's also another aspect where you can host an event like in a specific category, and then people can like sign up to hang out with you. So I just have one question for you guys. When are you gonna give me your money?
Okay, let's offer the man some feedback. Go ahead.
I think it's really good that you talk about how your competitiveness and uniqueness. I think if you are more specific about how your amount of money that you're gonna raise and how you're more unique than Facebook, instead of like talking about the features, how do you emotionally appeal to people? I think that's my feedback.
I beg your pardon. Go ahead. The little switch on the bottom should be pointing at the horizontal line.
I thought you were very confident, great delivery. I might tweak the questions to not I, or the statements not I to you. So just in terms of saying have you ever wanted to meet somebody different, to identify the gap and to phrase it about you, not necessarily the I sentence, but great delivery.
All right, well, then you're the custodian of this one. And you were gracious enough to connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook or something. I can't remember which. So you're walking the walk, which is good.
I just had something to say. Great job. Body language was very good. But just don't say connect with
See what he's doing with the microphone right now?
Yeah, don't say connect with strangers. That's kind of, no. I mean, I would say connect with future friends or friends to be. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, let me weigh in here because I'm watching the clock. Thank you. Owen, you did not persuade me that this is a problem. I mean, I know plenty of people who say, oh my God, I've already got more social media things. I'm getting bombarded with them right now. Anyway, the last bloody thing I need is another app. This could be wrong, but your presentation would have been stronger if you'd said, I've interviewed 50 people who are on Facebook and ask them sort of an open-ended question. If you could improve Facebook or find an alternative, how would you change it? And 40 of the 50 said they would like to be able to go beyond their circle of friends. So we've got an app that does that. And the way we're going to make money is, so you get big points for having an animated presentation. You get big points for being able to reach out and grab the audience, which, I mean, in fairness, he did a great job of that stuff. But from an investor presentation perspective, it could have been like me trying to sell a lawnmower to somebody who doesn't have any grass. You did not demonstrate that there's an unmet need. You leapt right into it's going to be bigger than Facebook, and here's why, and skipped right over the people are not satisfied. I mean, you probably have done the research, but anyway, I think we have time for one more. Let's give Owen a hand. You're welcome. Nice job. See what I meant about it being kind of risk-free? Come on down, you know. You going to do this? and you want to do it. Sorry? Well, come on down, and if the boss man says we can go a minute or two over, we'll get to you.
Thank you, Bob.
Oh, you're dying to go, aren't you?
Hello, everyone. Has the time started? Hello, everyone. My name is Abdulaziz Ashrafan. I am from Kuwait. How many of us have been to restaurants and seen a menu and thought, I don't know what to order? But I really know, let's see the hands. Right? We've all been to new cities, we've all been somewhere where we want to go to a new restaurant, but we don't know what to order. And that menu is kind of too much. But I really want to know what you like, and maybe what you like, and maybe what you really liked in the appetizers. And I've got the app for that. Go in, search your restaurant, go in and see the exact menu item that people loved to eat, that people liked. So it's kind of a collective taste. I want to know what people liked to eat at that restaurant, and I want to try it for myself. And I want to have a group of people to share. It's the app for foodies. That's my idea. And it's a kind of a two-way plan because you get data from the customers, you also get data from the restaurants, and you share that, and you're an in-between. And for future, I do hope to apply a subscription plan for people who want to become longtime foodies like me.
Okay, this is going to be a little bit like speed dating in the last couple of minutes here, so let's cut him off.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, but I'm going to preempt your ability to comment on this just because I'm looking at the clock. I think your talk would have been better if you have said, I have polled a whole bunch of restaurant owners who've said that they're not getting repeat business because the menu is overwhelming and is not focused on what their customers want. I have a way to come forward with an app that will help them pre-select, and I've put together a loyalty program with the restaurant owners so that they come and they come and they come again, and et cetera, et cetera. And I have a prototype for this that's working. So I don't even need to charge the consumers for it, although one day I might. My real customer is the restaurant owners who want repeat business and incremental revenue. Okay? Just a thought. So you want me to wrap it up? All right, well, then I'm so sorry for a couple of you who got stiffed this evening, and that's my fault for yammering on too long. But let me wrap it up. Great presentations take planning, they take practice. Ask yourself who your audience is. What are they worried about? What are they interested in? And answer the question, if they do what you're asking them to do, whether it's use your app or give you their money, why will they be better off? And they're thinking, what's in it for me? Know the three things you want them to remember when you finish your presentation. Build your presentation with that focus. Oh yeah, practice. And good luck. Thank you very much.